Bloodborne. I played through Bloodborne again earlier this year, and I actually streamed the playthrough. I have 2 whole videos about it. This game is really good, like unreasonably good. It looks good, it feels good, the setting, the lore, the characters, the bosses, the music, the combat, all of it is just insanely good. I had played Bloodborne a few times before this, but I had never done the Chalice dungeons, so that was pretty interesting. Gonna be honest, they're kinda not that good. Like, thinking about it, I don't really want to do them ever again necessarily. Most of the bosses and areas were relatively weak, a few cool ones here and there, but overall not great. However, none of that matters when you consider that all of it is just extra. Like I said, I hadn't done the Chalices before this playthrough, yet I already considered Bloodborne one of the greatest games ever made. It doesn't harm the game in any way, and I do like the concept quite a lot, even if in execution a lot of it is not that interesting. Overall though, I bought a PS4 back in 2017 just to play this game, and it was very worth it, and it continues to be very worth it. If you haven't played it yet, I highly recommend you do. You might be thinking that it's better to wait for a remake at this point, but I don't know, chances are they're gonna fuck it up somehow. And PS4s are being practically given away at the moment, so honestly I'd say go for it. If you're truly motivated, you could probably play Bloodborne right now for less than like $80, you know? Like, PS4s are really cheap at the moment. I don't know what the state of PS4 emulation is. I haven't heard about it in a while, so I'm guessing it's not very good. Either way, you should probably play Bloodborne. It is one of the greatest games ever made, easily. But yeah, enough about Bloodborne. Let's talk about one of the not so greatest games ever made. Pokemon Let's Go Pikachu. I played this pretty early on in the year as well. The main reasons why I played Pokemon Let's Go Pikachu is it was the only mainline Pokemon game that I hadn't played yet. So now, having played it, I have played every single mainline entry in the series. I haven't played all the version differences, so like I haven't played Pokemon Diamond, but I have played Pokemon Pearl, if you get what I'm saying. And number 2, I really like Generation 1 Pokemon and Kanto. The following Pokemon are really cool, and they were honestly probably the best part of the game. It's a really small thing, but especially the Pokemon that have like special following animations are just extremely cool. I really like this kind of thing. Please do more of it in the future. And the game looks pretty good. I do like the way the game looks. It's very like a simple kind of style. It looks quite charming, but it's not really ideal to have the game's main appeal be that it's charming when the game is trying to replace Generation 1, or specifically Yellow, is the definition of the word charm. Look it up. If you search for the definition of the word charm, it just puts you on the Wikipedia page for Generation 1 Pokemon. Shit is fucking adorable. Yeah, that's about where the good things I have to say about the game end. The wild battles suck. When I was first introduced in the game to the idea of like catching Pokemon like you do in Pokemon Go, I was open to it. I was like, you know, maybe this has some like promise. Maybe this is like a cool way of doing this. And it's just no. There were so many points where I was just like wondering like, what does this add to the game? How does this in any way benefit the game? Because like you already had the normal Pokemon like catching like wild battle system. It's been in all the previous games. So they had to go out of their way to implement this new system into this game. I never once thought to myself like, oh, I'm glad I had to like shake the Joy-Con to throw the Pokeball. It's just kind of like not good. In Pokemon Go, I think it makes perfect sense to have that more simplified like wild Pokemon system. But in a normal Pokemon game, I really don't think it adds anything to it. They also added a lot of hand-holding. There's so much stuff where the game just like gives you something that in the originals you had to search for, and it just makes it feel like there's no incentive to really like go explore when everything that you need for progressing is just given to you. I mean, either way, like I knew where everything is. It's, you know, Gen 1 Pokemon, but still, like looking at it from the perspective of like if someone played this as their first experience with Kanto, and I knew going into the game that it was targeted more towards the audience that came from Pokemon Go, but I was still hoping that there would be a bit more here than just like okay visuals and following Pokemon. And regarding like the inclusion of Mega Evolution, I don't really care. I feel like it's kind of just tacked on at the end. It feels very out of place. It doesn't really fit in Kanto at all. Seeing Blue was cool. Blue was really awesome. I hope they do something more with her. It's been 5 years now. We haven't seen her since. Do more with that character, I guess. Also, their name is Blue, by the way. But I'm forgetting something. the game does add a lot of quality of life features. And most of all, they of course added the modern EXP share. I believe that the modern EXP share is the absolute worst thing to happen to Pokemon. I think that out of everything wrong with modern Pokemon, EXP share is the absolute worst thing out of them. I really hate this thing. I've talked about this before in other videos, but I kind of want to go through this rant again. I think that the modern EXP share really takes away from the Pokemon games, and it's kind of sad that that doesn't really seem to be a very popular opinion. It seems that a lot of people, even people who dislike modern Pokemon, seem to defend the modern EXP share for some reason. And I would kind of like to talk about, I think, the main problem I have with it, and why I think it's such a big deal. A common thing you see people use to defend the modern EXP share is the fact that most JRPGs have the EXP share. A party EXP share like this is pretty common in JRPGs and has been for a while, so the argument is that Pokemon is just slow to adapt this normal feature and that Pokemon fans just aren't used to it, and because that they dislike it. But the problem with this argument is that Pokemon is not just a JRPG, it is also a monster racing and collecting game. And while the EXP share might make sense in a JRPG, it heavily fucks up the monster racing and collecting part of the game. You know how in normal JRPGs you have your party members and they have dialogue, they have personalities, they have backstories, they have character development, and they will interact with the plot. All of that makes you connected to the character. Through seeing their backstory, through seeing their dialogue, their personality, all of that, you become connected to this character, and thus the game becomes engaging because you care about these characters. Now in Pokemon, let's say you catch a Pidgey on Route 1. Does it have dialogue? Is it gonna have any character development? What's its backstory? You know? Does it have a personality? The closest it has to that is the nature, but in reality that's literally just stats. It doesn't actually matter. If you catch another Pidgey, the only difference is going to be its stats. Otherwise it's basically going to be interchangeable. So why then can I, and I believe most people, look back on the Pokemon games they've played and specifically pinpoint Pokemon that they have a strong connection to? And not just the species of Pokemon, but specific individual Pokemon. That I remember using Swampert in Pokemon Emerald, or I remember my Nidoking in Soul Silver. So how does that happen then? How do I have a connection to these Pokemon if they don't have any personality, if they don't have any dialogue, they don't have any character development? The reason why is because I use them in battle. I interact with the Pokemon, and that creates a connection with the Pokemon. So if you introduce something like the EXP share, which makes it so that you have no need to interact with the Pokemon, then that whole fucking element is going to be gone. And I can say I don't really remember a whole lot about my team from Pokemon Sword or even my team from Pokemon Scarlet, because I didn't really have to interact with the Pokemon much. And of course, there are special scenarios like shiny Pokemon, for example, which are special because of the fact that they're so rare. So you are going to sort of intrinsically have this kind of connection to the Pokemon, even though you haven't used it. And I guess same thing sort of goes for starter Pokemon, but even then not really. I believe that this is a very critical, important part of Pokemon that for some reason everyone is just ignoring. And I think my theory on why this is the case is that back in the day, a bunch of YouTubers basically psyoped an entire generation of people into believing that grinding levels in JRPGs is a bad thing. You can obviously have your own opinions on this. You can believe that grinding levels is tedious or boring or whatever. I think you also have to acknowledge the problems that come with the XP share, and in my opinion, getting rid of level grinding and in return losing all connection to the Pokemon in your party. Not a very good trade-off. I personally wouldn't really make that trade if it were up to me, but seemingly the people at Game Freak are more than happy to do it. The last time I talked about this, I used the example of my Empoleon from Pokemon Shining Pearl, and I think it's quite a good example, so I'm gonna use it again. So when I was playing through Pokemon Shining Pearl, I had a Prinplup. Suddenly, after a battle, the Prinplup started evolving. and I was really surprised by this. Not because I didn't know that Prinplup evolves at level 36, but because I had no clue it was already at that level. The last time I had sent it out in battle, it was level 29. It had gained 7 levels just sitting at the back of my party, not entering a single battle during that whole time, and it just evolved into its final stage. My fucking starter Pokemon basically evolved off screen. I don't know how the fuck you can look at this and then think to yourself, well, at least I don't have to grind levels anymore. I feel like an absolute insane person when I see people talking about how modern Pokemon sucks and how it's so bad and all that. And then I think to myself, like, yeah, I kind of get where these people are coming from. The games feel a lot more hollow, they leave less of an impact on me. And then they look at me and they're like, no, I'm not talking about that. I love the EXP share. I'm talking about the 3 textures. But yeah, the modern EXP share is in Let's Go Pikachu, and I think that alone is enough of a reason to not play these games. It just makes me think, like, who are these games exactly for? I get that there are 4 people again who came from Pokemon Go, but I'm not really talking about in terms of marketing. I'm talking about, like, now. It's like, who would play these games outside of me? Because if you want to play Kanto, you would be way better off playing Generation 1. If you get filtered by Gen 1, you just can't deal with it, it's too much for your brain. I guess play Fire Red Leaf Green. I don't particularly like Fire Red Leaf Green too much. I think they're kind of boring when it comes to Pokemon games, but even they are, like, I think way better than Let's Go Pikachu and Eevee. So all in all, it's Let's Go Pikachu and Eevee are probably my least favorite Pokemon games. I think I would rather play them than Sun and Moon, but that's more so because I think Sun and Moon is just really not made for me. It's like the exact opposite of what I want from a Pokemon game. But I still, like, I respect Sun and Moon. I think Sun and Moon are cool games, just not for me. But yeah, we're getting completely off topic here. That's enough about these games. Let's move on to another Nintendo Switch game. I think, yeah, that works as a transition. Tears of the Kingdom. It good. It good. I don't feel very strongly about this game, honestly. I played it quite a lot even. I think I put in like over 100 hours, and I mean, I enjoyed it, like greatly so. But I don't really have a whole lot to say about it. Like, I don't really have any strong opinions on it. I think especially in this case, because it is so similar to Breath of the Wild, it's kind of difficult to like come up with anything to say about it that I wouldn't also say about Breath of the Wild. I guess regarding that, I don't think that's a bad thing at all. I think it's perfectly fine to have a sequel like this, because Breath of the Wild was like really good, and I wouldn't have minded having more of it, so now we have more of it. I think the main appeal of it is that the overall like physics of the game, the movement, all of the interactability with the world, just makes the game really fun to play. Just everything, whatever small thing you're doing, whatever small side quest you're doing, it all just works so fucking well. The combat is great and how everything weaves into each other, and it all feels like this big thing rather than like segmented concepts. It all just comes together really nicely. One thing that sort of stood out to me about this game specifically was the big cool cinematic moments in the game. There were like a few of them, and I think they all really left like a bigger impression than I think anything in Breath of the Wild really did. Felt more cinematic and cool. That's an improvement, and I think the overall like finale of the game was quite satisfying. Yeah, it's a good game. I enjoy it. Moving on to another game that is very good. Yeah. I'm gonna do spoilers for Armored Core 6, so if you have not played it, then get the fuck out.
I won't miss.
Armored Core 6. This game is insanely good. Why did no one tell me that this game is so good? At the start, I didn't even plan on playing this game. I had no intention of playing it, because I thought that I just wouldn't have time to play it. I haven't played any of the other Armored Core games, so I felt kind of bad starting with the 6th game, but in the end I decided to play it. I think it was a combination of, number 1, I saw some gameplay of it and I thought it looked really fun, and number 2, I was rewatching Ava, and I thought like, I kind of want to play a video game with big robots, and then, you know, there happened to be a new video game with big robots, so I was like, I'm gonna go for it, and then I went for it. And I'm so glad that I did it, because goddamn, this game is so good. It is so good. It really just blew me away. Going into it, I had the impression that it was going to be pretty clunky. That was what I had heard about the previous games, is that it's kind of clunky and kind of awkward, not really like a smooth game, which might be the case. I don't know about the other games, I haven't played them, but this game, not at all. I bought this game like a few days after launch. I had heard a lot of people say that this is like the most difficult game ever. It's way more difficult than Elden Ring. It's like the most toughest thing ever. Everyone is getting stuck on Baltius. It's like entirely fucked. No. I'm not saying that the game is easy, but it's also not particularly difficult either. And most of all, it's really, really forgiving. That was probably the most shocking thing for me. If you buy a part and then you don't like that part, you can just refund it. For free. It doesn't cost you anything, you don't lose out on anything, you just refund it, get full refund. If you fail a mission, just try again. You lose literally nothing. If you run out of money, just do the missions again and again. You have checkpoints, you can just retry the boss basically over and over again until you win it. It's so forgiving. The game is so fucking forgiving compared to the Souls games. I really don't understand all the people saying that the game was so difficult. It really wasn't like... It didn't feel at all like the Souls game's difficulty does, which I get that it's obviously not a Souls game, but I saw a lot of people like comparing it to like, this game is more difficult than Elden Ring, and it's like, no, not even close. But yeah, the gameplay is amazing. I said that I wanted to play a big robot game, and this is pretty much exactly what I wanted. I could not have asked for a better big robot game. It just feels so goddamn satisfying. This game is like the perfect power fantasy game where you can just fucking destroy everything. One of the most satisfying games I have played ever, absolutely. I played the game to New Game +2, so like the true ending. I also played it again recently to get footage for this video. The characters and story of this game also surprised me, because going in I didn't expect that to really be like a big point of this game. But it was so cool. This game's story was awesome, the characters were amazing. All the kind of different like dialogue options that you can get by like doing different shit in the game, all the different like paths that you can accomplish and see like how different characters will act in different situations. It's all very, very interesting. And I really like the fact that all of the characters in the game call you by like different names. They all have like their specific name that they use for you. I think that's a super cool detail. Also, this game has so many insanely cool like cinematic moments. Well, prior to the Ice Worm mission, I was already like full on like invested in the game. That's really when I was like, wow, this game is something different. that moment with the I won't miss, holy shit, that is so cool. The final bosses were all insanely cool. I absolutely love Iguazu. I don't know what it is. I really like characters like Iguazu, I think. Sort of characters that are purposefully made to be hateable, like Patches, for example. Which that was, by the way, surprising that Patches wasn't in the game, because from what I've heard, Patches was first introduced in Armored Core, but maybe it's in the DLC, who knows. Either way, Iguazu was great. All of the characters were so fucking good. They're all so much fun. I was also really surprised by how fun and intuitive the Armored Core customization was. I was expecting like when you first look at the menu, it looks kind of overwhelming. But it's quite simple, honestly. Obviously, if you want to like really min-max and make like really good like PvP mechs or whatever, then I'm guessing that gets like really complicated. But just like for the story, it made a lot of sense. I think it was quite easy to get the hang of. And I spent a lot of time just like customizing, trying out different kinds of Armored Cores. Maybe the biggest problem I ended up having with the game that I didn't really like was the fact that really heavy builds felt pretty broken. There were a few moments in the game where I was kind of stuck on a boss, and then I just kind of switched on like a heavy machine gun build and just absolutely destroyed them. Especially like tank legs and machine guns, it's like a lot of bosses are just completely trivialized by that combo. Yeah, that part, I don't really like the fact that at any point, if I was having trouble with like playing like a really light build and I couldn't beat a boss, I could just switch to a heavy build and just win instantly. I don't really like feeling like I'm purposefully making the game difficult for myself by playing with like a certain type of build. I'm sure the PvP has some balance issues as well, but I didn't really play it at all, so I don't really care about that. I have seen some gameplay of the earlier entries in the series, and I'm really looking forward to playing those games. The next time that I get some PS2 games, I will definitely pick up some of these early Armored Core games. And especially I saw some gameplay of the PS3 games. I think it was specifically For Answer, I think it's called. That game looks so cool, what the fuck? But I think now I'm gonna play through the games in like order, so I'm probably gonna start with the first game at some point, and then I'll slowly work my way up to, I guess, the 5th game. So I suppose there might be DLC for Armored Core 6. so I'll probably, play that first. But either way, Armored Core is great. I'm really excited to play more of these games. 6 was an absolute treat. I really, really loved it. What's a good transition here? Let me come up with it. I'm gonna come up with it on the spot here. Let's talk about another game that I played this year. Stranding. I bought this game when it released, pretty much, like a month after release, and then I just never played it. I remember at some point just like looking at my PS4 and being like, ah damn, I really, like, it's not just a meme, I only have played Bloodborne on the PS4. Like, I have this and I also have a Last Guardian on it, but I have only played Bloodborne. Like, it's like actually real. That it's the only game I've played on the PS4. And I was like, I should maybe change that, huh? I should maybe like play something else on it as well. And then I looked at Death Stranding and I was like, fuck it, let's do that. And then I did it. This game was surprisingly very, very good. It's weird, I don't hear this game talked about much at all ever since it released. I think it got labeled as a walking simulator, and then everyone kind of just forgot about it. But it's good. It's like really good. It's kind of hard to even like pinpoint where I should really start. I guess number one, I absolutely loved the way this game looks. Even, playing it on the PS4, which it's also been released on PC, but I happen to have it on the PS4, so I didn't really feel like buying the PC version as well. But on the PS4, it looks so good. And usually the games that I really like visually are because of the fact that they're like really stylized, but this game isn't really like that stylized. It just has such nice colors and the environments are just insane. They look so cool, all these mountainous areas. I think it's like Norway or Iceland or something, I don't know. I don't know what it's supposed to be based on, but it looks so fucking nice. The kind of tech in the game is designed by Yoji Shinkawa, who was the same guy who did like Metal Gear tech stuff and the Metal Gear itself. And it looks super fucking nice. I've always loved this guy's style. And the UI works really well with all of this. And it just all comes together to create this really nice visual identity for the game. I'm a big fan of it. The actors for the game are really good. I really like Mads Mikkelsen. He's very cool. Also, he is literally me. The game has really interesting concepts. Going into it, I only sort of knew a little bit what the game was kind of about. It had a lot of that kind of similar like fantasy science or whatever that like Metal Gear had. It's pretty cool. I like it. Hideo Kojima's writing and overall like storytelling it can be kind of cringe, but it's free. It's fun. I enjoy it. Maybe the biggest thing is like the tone can be quite inconsistent often. A lot of the time you'll kind of have moments where the characters are like really acting in ways that you wouldn't really expect them to act in the situation that they're in. But it's fine. It's okay. From what I've seen after playing the game, most of the criticism for the game come from just people not really liking the concept to begin with. I don't think there's any real problems with like the execution of the idea. And once you get used to the way all the systems work and how like delivering stuff works, it becomes surprisingly fun. Maybe the biggest problem I had with Metal Gear Solid 5 was that the open world was entirely pointless. You could have basically removed the open world from the game and nothing of value would have been lost. It was just these enemy camps, and then between it was just basically empty space. But in this game, you have similar kind of like camps, and you have some like enemy camps as well, but the areas between them serve a big purpose, because the whole point is that you're delivering stuff, so the terrain that you deliver it through matters a lot. The main point of the game doesn't really happen in the camps. It usually happens in the distance between the camps or places. That alone gives the open world a lot more purpose, and like I mentioned, it's really fucking beautiful. That obviously doesn't hurt. Maybe the one issue I had with the game was that it is quite long, and near the end of it, I was starting to get kind of tired of it, and I sort of wanted it to like wrap up. But I think that might also be just a personal skill issue, since at the time there were other games that I wanted to play, and I didn't have like the most amount of time. Overall though, a fantastic experience. Yeah, that's Stranding. Moving on. Pikmin. I love it. I love Pikmin. I had played Pikmin a little bit ages ago. We're talking like over 10 years ago. I played to maybe like day 15. I realized that I was really behind on the ship, so I just kind of like gave up and then didn't touch the game again. But now, I did return to the game now, and I played through it. and it's so good. It's so good. I love this game. Everything about the concept and the designs of Pikmin is just so incredibly charming. It's so fucking cute. I absolutely love the Pikmin as creatures and all the enemies. They're super cool. The game itself is just such a joyful experience to play through. It was just a very short but sweet experience. I really enjoyed it. But yeah, that's it for Pikmin. Moving on. And Dark Souls 3, it's probably the Souls game that I feel the least like connection to, or the least strongly about. Like, at least for Dark Souls 2, I have like this deep seething hatred. DS3, it's like, it's good. It's very good. But I don't really feel very strongly about it. It didn't really leave like a huge impact on me. And it's annoying because you would think that there's something in the game then that makes it feel less impactful. And I've tried to pinpoint that, but I can't really come up with anything specific. Maybe it's the fact that the game gives you like warping immediately, so the world design is like less important. Maybe it's the fact that it takes a lot of things from Dark Souls 1 and thus it has like less of its own identity. Maybe it's a combination of a bunch of factors, who knows. But I don't think any of that really makes the game like bad. Especially after Elden Ring, I was sort of worried that there would be like no point in playing Dark Souls 3 anymore, since the combat of Elden Ring does feel pretty similar to Dark Souls 3. So I was sort of worried that like Elden Ring would make Dark Souls 3 like obsolete. But having played it again now, that's not the case. This game feels like it can stand on its own. It has its own merits that Elden Ring doesn't have. Yeah, it's good. I would say the main highlights of the game are probably the bosses. With the DLC, especially like Gale. Gale is such a cool boss, holy shit. This recent playthrough did make me appreciate Gale more. I think I always liked him, but now it really kind of like set in that like this is like a very nice finale for Dark Souls. I kind of hope that this is the final Dark Souls title, like properly named Dark Souls and everything, because this is a very nice fitting finale for the series. And I do really appreciate that. Overall, the DLCs are fantastic. They are like some of the best Souls content ever released. Yeah, beyond that, I don't really got a whole lot for this. Yeah, let's move on. Monster Hunter Freedom Unite. I think it's already been about 2 years since I actually started playing Freedom Unite, but it's been very, very on and off, where I'll go like months and months without even thinking about it, and then I play it for like a few weeks and then I again don't think about it. Even now, I'm still not really done with the game. I'm only now getting into G rank, so there is still like a good amount of stuff left, but I already sort of wanted to include it in last year's video, but then I decided to leave it out there, so I was like, you know, this time, fuck it. I've seen enough of the game to be able to say that I really, really like it. I've been playing it on the PSP with the claw grip and everything. When I first got it, I got it with the idea that this has a chance to be like one of my favorite games ever. Everything I had seen of the game looked so amazing. It all seemed just so perfect. While Generations Ultimate, prior to Freedom Unite, was like the oldest Monster Hunter game I had played, the ones I've played are GU, World, Rise, and Sunbreak. So with GU, I did enjoy it a lot. But GU is kind of weird since it's like a compilation game, sort of. And it also has just a lot of like wacky shit in it. And this seemed like a more simple game that had the same kind of charm as like GU did overall, like the older Monster Hunter games did. Just everything from like the visuals, the monster roster, Poke Village, all of the different maps in the game, the simplicity of the combat, how much the game asked from you. It seemed like such an amazing game, and I can say that it has lived up to that entirely. It is everything that I just described. The game looks so nice. I don't know what it is about this specific like PSP style or whatever you'd call it. Really great mix of PS1 and PS2, where it's not quite as sharp as something like PS2. It doesn't have as much detail, but it's also kind of better than the PS1 and allows for like bigger things, and it's so cool. I really, really like it, and I think this game looks absolutely fantastic, especially on the PSP. Most of the gameplay that you'll see of this game out there is done on an emulator with some sort of upscaling, and it looks a lot cleaner. And I get the benefit of that, and I get wanting to do that, but I don't know, for me, I really love the lower resolution of the PSP. It kind of works. You don't really notice it as much when you're playing it on like a small screen compared to if you blow it up to like a full screen monitor. And just the game is so goddamn charming. All of the little details that they have. The farm, for example, is just full of like little cool things everywhere. And I just really love the style of, I guess, portable Monster Hunter. There's a lot of history that goes into it. I'm not gonna really talk about it too much here, but from what I've understood, there were like kind of two teams with Monster Hunter back in the day, and there was specifically a portable team, and a lot of kind of this like cutesy style, like the Palicos, for example, apparently comes from the portable style. And I really love it. Having said all that, this game, while being extremely charming and cute, is also insane. It's also really fucking difficult. Right, let's get out of there. Some people might already be saying that the PS2 game, the original PS2 game, is more difficult, or that the DOS is more difficult, or whatever. I don't know. I have not played those games. I wouldn't be surprised if they're more difficult, since from what I've understood, Freedom Unite does add like a lot of quality of life stuff, which is sort of hard to believe considering how much of the modern quality of life is still missing from this game. I think that's a part of this game's appeal and charm, is the fact that this game asks like a lot out of you, especially compared to modern Monster Hunter games. I feel like this is a game that you really need to like invest time and effort into if you want to actually play it and make progress in it. I think that's cool. And I've seen the discussion pop up a lot of like, has Monster Hunter gotten easier? And I will fully say that, like, yes, absolutely. No doubt it has gotten easier. That's not a bad thing. I don't think Monster Hunter is too easy. A lot of the late game monsters in Sunbreak, like the recent Elder Dragons, they were pretty damn difficult. A lot of them took me a few tries. But, I mean, come on. What I always hear is that the first Monster Hunter game you play is always going to be your most difficult one. So it's just because of that people think the earlier ones are more difficult. What the fuck? No, not at all. My first game was World, then I played GU, and then I played Rise and Sunbreak. I can say with absolute certainty that Freedom Unite is more difficult than any of those games. Easily. And just as like an example of this, in all of those games that I mentioned, I don't think I ever really struggled in low rank. The first time I really got like challenged in those games was somewhere in like high rank, and in Rise that didn't really happen. I think it was only really like very late G rank that I started to get like actually difficult stuff. In Freedom Unite, some quests in low rank took me multiple tries to do, and high rank has been a fucking struggle. It's been so fucked. I feel like the game is just so much more punishing. So much more punishing, where if you make a mistake, that can easily lead to a cart, whereas in the modern Monster Hunter games that I've played, usually you have to make multiple mistakes in a row for you to actually cart. Only like the really late game monsters have the ability to like cart you on just like one mistake, you know? Also, there's like resource management. In all of those other Monster Hunter games that I've played, I never had to worry about honey running out. I always had mega potions, whereas in Freedom Unite, I'm constantly on the verge of running out of them, because you only get about 5 honey at most per quest from the farm. So that means if you're using 10 mega potions every single quest, you're going to run out of honey. Part of the reason why I have been playing it so on and off is because it can feel kind of stressful to play this game for me. Sometimes I don't really feel like getting just carded 3 times in a row with some absolute dog shit from some annoying ass monster, because this game does have a lot of annoying stuff. I won't deny that. There are a lot of very questionable hitboxes. There are a lot of monsters that will just absolutely fucking they will do so many annoying things. I have been counting the Gravios that I've fought as like a countdown of like, okay, this is my second to last Gravios. After this, I only need to fight 1 more, and then I'm done with them. I don't need to fight them ever again. I'm done with them. In this game, at the very least, I will never see another Gravios. I am looking forward to that day. I see. Yep. I don't think you understand the magnitude of what just happened there. The Remobra pushed me into the beam. It didn't hit me, it pushed me. Its tail moved me over to the beam. The very, very edge of the beam. That is frankly unbelievable. I am very fast losing the ability to continue playing because of my sheer unimaginably fierce rage towards this video game right now. Same could be said about maybe Blessiot and stuff like that, but honestly, I think Blessiot gets too much shit. It's annoying, sure, but I really don't find it as bad as like Gravios, and then especially okay, here's a little rant. If you are one of those people who happens to like mono blows, close your ears. Now, this is your cue to leave. I fucking hate mono blows. That monster fucking sucks. Before I started playing Freedom Unite, back when I really got into Generations Ultimate, I would look into like Monster Hunter. I was really interested in the series. I was like, wow, I'm really loving this game. I want to find out more. What am I missing here in GU? What's something that this game doesn't include? You know, it has a lot of stuff, but surely there's other stuff from the earlier games. And one of the things I ran into was monoblows. Everyone is saying that this monster is the coolest monster ever. It's way cooler than Diablos. It's this forgotten monster of the series that deserves more love. It's so much more better than Diablos. No, not at all. This fucker sucks. I fucking hate him. Sure, Diablos isn't a lot better in this game, but I still find him much more palatable. His monoblows is so fucking annoying to fight because it just keeps on digging, and it just fucking never stops. And I find its charges to be just way more annoying to deal with than Diablos, especially the white monoblows. When it gets angry, it's just such a fucking piece of shit. God, I do not like monoblows. It's not the worst monster in the game, but like relative to how much hype it had going into the game, fuck monoblows. Awful. Even with a lot of the monsters being very annoying, I think the game is still just wonderful, because that's what I'm sort of talking about when I say the game needs like investment from you. It requires you to put effort into it and time into it and thought into it. I think something like Gravios is the perfect example of this, where I described how Gravios makes me feel... Gravios is not great, right? But in defense of Gravios, I am fighting it with a longsword, right? Which is very much not ideal, and eventually, I did get tired of fighting it with a longsword, so I tried out the bow. Although it didn't fix the fight, it did improve it. It did very much improve it. So what I'm trying to say here is that with something like Gravios or Blessiot, with all of these monsters, if you prepare enough, you can sort of overcome the annoying aspects of the fight. With Gravios, you can use a weapon more fit for fighting it, and you can use like water element. With Blessiot, you can, trap it, you can fucking flash bomb it, you can use a thunder element weapon and just like kill it before it can go back into the water. Monoblows, you can just bring like an absolute fuckload of sonic bombs. There are ways of dealing with the annoying bullshit that these monsters do. That's, I think, a part of the game that I really appreciate, where a lot of the time, I might be fighting monoblows or Gravios, and I'm feeling very homicidal. I'm feeling very strong, strong thoughts, But even then, I end up thinking to myself, well, this is kind of my fault. I should have done this, or I should have done that if I didn't want to deal with this. I think you oftentimes hear about with older Monster Hunter that there was more of a focus on preparing for the hunt and not just like going in with your non-element longsword and just killing everything with Valor counter. I think that's neat. I like it. A monster that I was actually very positively surprised by was Nargacuga. I fought it first time in Generations Ultimate, and I absolutely loved it. It's my favorite monster in the series. I really like the fight, I like the equipment. I think it's a very fun fight to farm. I think out of all of the fights in Monster Hunter, it's the one that I've managed to learn the best, where it just kind of like clicks with me better than a lot of the other monsters. But going into this game, the debut, it is the flagship of Monster Hunter Freedom Unite, I was pretty worried, because this game is a good bit slower and sort of clunkier than the later entries that I have played. I was kind of worried how a monster like Nargacuga, that is quite fast, would work in a game like this. I was expecting it to be potentially really difficult. Maybe Nargacuga would be a lot slower, or a lot more like... a lot different, basically. And I was wrong. It works really well. It doesn't even feel that much more different than later entries. I've been sort of farming it. I got the longsword and the greatsword for it, and it's been a very good time. It has, I think, enhanced my enjoyment of this monster. Yeah, that was a very pleasant surprise. There are still some things left in the game that I have not seen yet that I'm very much looking forward to seeing, such as Fatalis and Yamatsukami. I'm really looking forward to seeing Yamatsukami. I'm expecting it to be pretty bad. Like, everything I've seen of the fight, it looks pretty boring, and that's what I've heard as well, is that it's just not a very good or interesting fight. Shen Gaoren and Lao Shanlong, although they are like very boring, don't get me wrong, I still sort of enjoyed them. I like them. I think they're really cool monsters, and I get the idea with them. In execution, it obviously doesn't necessarily work the best in a game like Monster Hunter. Preferably, you would have the monsters be something that you can farm, sort of like I mentioned with Narga. I don't know, just as like a one-off quest that I do as like an urgent, it was pretty cool. And I really like the designs of these monsters, so yeah, I think it's fine. And I'm looking forward to seeing Yamatsukami and Fatalis and White Fatalis and all that. Overall, this is one of my favorite games, I think. Yeah, moving on to the next game. Digimon World. This is the game that I mentioned in last year's video, where I said that this is the game that I want to play this year. And I played it a good amount, not completely. I ordered a specific cable that would allow me to play it on a certain TV, but then that cable somehow took 2 months to get through customs, and boom, it's fucking December, and I haven't really even started playing the game yet, and I kinda just played as much of it as I could. But yeah, I'm sort of not done with it yet. I also mentioned this game in the PS2 video, where I talked about the PS2 games and PS1 games that I got from Japan. Yeah, this was one of them. Sort of everything that I mentioned in that video about why I got the game ended up being completely true. So the recap, this game looks amazing. It looks so cool. It is absolute like peak PS1 visuals. I cannot describe enough how cool it is. Have you seen the box art? Have you seen the box art? It's so fucking cool. Playing this game on the CRT TV has been really nice. It's been very relaxing. I think the easiest way to explain what this game is really about is that it takes the virtual pet device that I talked about in last year's video and then turns it into like a full video game. It sort of just adds like levels of complexity to every mechanic from the virtual pet device, also adds like a story, but it's sort of based on the same idea at the core of it. I now realize that I didn't really explain what the virtual pet device did exactly in last year's video, so I guess I sort of need to explain that as well. It's like Tamagotchi, where you have this pet that you need to take care of, except it's a Digimon. It evolves. I think it was 6 hours, then it's 24 hours, 72 hours, and then the final one is like 7 days, I want to say. I could be wrong on that. I'll put the correct numbers on screen. You have certain requirements for certain Digimon. So if you want it to evolve into this one, then you need to hit these requirements. And if you don't hit any requirements, then it will evolve into a literal piece of shit. And that is basically the main core of the game, is that you are raising your Digimon in the hopefully correct way so that it will evolve into a better Digimon. And the virtual pet device had all of that. The Digimon World game adds to this a whole world to explore. And throughout this world, you will find a Digimon that you can recruit into the town, the overall, like, I guess, starting area, and they will help you in raising the Digimon. So you can, for example, get like a store where you can buy stuff and, you know, get much easier access to resources. And the way you oftentimes recruit these Digimon is by battling them. You can see how it sort of feeds into itself, how like to raise your Digimon better, you need to recruit Digimon, but to recruit Digimon, you need to have raised your Digimon good so that it can actually beat the Digimon in battle. So it creates this kind of nice gameplay loop where you explore around, come across Digimon to recruit, battle them, and then once you've recruited them, you can now raise your Digimon easier. And what adds to all of this is that your Digimon will die. It will eventually perish. It is an unavoidable fact. And when that happens, you get a Digimon egg. So you basically start from the beginning again, but the difference is that you keep all of the progress that you made in the town with your previous Digimon. So this time, raising it will be easier because you have access to the store, you have access to the fucking doctor and everything. Yeah, that's basically the game explained. There is a story with, you know, the town and like the whole reason you're recruiting the Digimon, but it's pretty basic. It's pretty simple, at least so far. Maybe it'll get more deep, but so far I've been enjoying it. It's been a great time. I would say the main problems that I've run into is that there are a lot of things that the game doesn't really like explain, the different requirements for different Digimon evolutions. So I have had to look up a good amount of stuff for those, but it hasn't been too bad in my experience. One more thing I would add is that the game can be quite stressful because you need to obviously like take care of your Digimon. You need to feed it, you need to let it take a shit, and you need to let it sleep when it wants to sleep. Those are like the main taking care of the Digimon aspects. There are other things like it can get sick. If you train it, you can like overtrain it and then it needs to rest and stuff like that. There's like the whole discipline system. But for the most part, you need to worry about keeping it fed and letting it take a shit when it wants to. And that's kind of where the stressful part comes in for me, where because the game runs on a timer constantly, like you're kind of always waiting for the next evolution to happen. You know, I'm like browsing my phone or something like that. I'm just kind of taking a break from the game. I'm pretty incentivized to just keep the game running rather than put it on pause because, you know, I can let the clock run and then I'll get to the evolution, right? But if I do that, then I need to constantly glance at the game to like make sure that the Digimon isn't like taking a shit somewhere bad or that it's not hungry or whatever. That can make it kind of stressful in some parts, and also like if you go out into an area, you have to worry about like, well, what if it wants to take a shit right now? There's no toilet nearby. I don't have any like portable things. Yeah, there's a lot of like stressful aspects to it as well. But I think that will largely go away once I get like more used to the systems and everything. But for now, that's been Digimon World. Let's move on to the final game. Pokemon Scarlet and Violet DLC, Teal Mask, and Indigo Disc. Yeah, I'm gonna group these two together. I'm also going to talk about them separately, so let's start with Teal Mask. It came out and I think I remembered that it was releasing like maybe 2 days before it actually released. I gotta say, I was kinda disappointed by it. I don't know if disappointed is the right word. It's like I wasn't impressed by it, I guess is a better way of putting it. Nothing about it really made me view Scarlet or Violet in any better way. Not necessarily a worse way either, but it was just kind of a very meh DLC. With maybe the biggest highlight being the characters and the intrigue of like what's going on with Kieran, why is he looking so evil and shit. What I remember mostly from the DLC is the incident that I had with the Sentret on stream. I still cannot believe that actually happened. Go watch the video for that, it should be in the corner if you haven't seen it yet. Beyond that, I don't know if a whole lot of the DLC really stuck with me. Like the story of the Ogre Pawn and the festival and all that was kind of just not that interesting to me, and the battles were quite easy, honestly. Somewhere like halfway through the DLC, I decided to like build a new team rather than trying to like somehow use my level 100 Pokemon. I decided that okay, I'm gonna build like a team of like level 60s and maybe I'll have like a better time. I don't know. Just in terms of battles, this DLC offered nothing basically. Not really ideal, I would say. And sometime after this DLC released, I remember being really pessimistic, really just kind of bored of modern Pokemon, and feeling like it wasn't really going into any kind of interesting direction at all. I wasn't expecting Indigo Disc to be like very bad or very good, I was just expecting it to be kind of more of basically what we had in Teal Mask, which is kind of like meh. Because of that, I also didn't look at anything for Indigo Disc. I didn't look at any trailers. I wasn't like very excited for it. It was again like 2 days before its release. I was like, oh yeah, that's happening. So let's talk about the Indigo Disc. Spoilers for the Indigo Disc DLC. Almost immediately when I started playing it, I got very excited because I hadn't really even considered the fact, I'm pretty sure this was announced like very early on, but the fact that they were doing only double battles is like really cool. That is really cool. That is something that I have been kind of wanting in the games for a really long time, and they did it. They did it. I have to say the execution of the double battles was pretty much exactly what I wanted. They managed to find a really nice balance where the teams of the opponents still feel like in-game teams. They're not like too optimized, but they do also have some really cool strategies. There was a second thing that got me very excited, which was the hyping up of Kieran. right? The build-up of this character as being really, really powerful. The reason why I was so excited for it was specifically because they managed to find such a good balance for the difficulty of the trainer matches. I was very excited to actually battle Kieran and see if they had actually managed to make one of these really, really hyped up characters actually deliver. So I decided that since I'm going to be battling this opponent, since I'm going to be battling the Elite Four here, I want to make a team. I want to create a team of Pokemon that I will test them with. Now I mentioned in the Teal Mask, I built a small team of Pokemon to use in the DLC. I decided to start building the rest of that team. I picked up the Screamtail that I had in my base game. I got it as a random shiny, and then I shiny hunted a Duraludon since it now has a new evolution in Archaludon, which is a really cool Pokemon. The signature move, the Electro Shot, very cool. I'm a big fan. Yeah, and then for the final Pokemon, I wanted to get a Typhlosion. If you haven't caught on yet, they're all shinies. I wanted to have them all as shiny Pokemon. Immediately, once I got access to the Terrarium, I went and unlocked the starter Pokemon in the polar biome and looked for the Cyndaquil. Once I found it, I realized that this wasn't going to be very simple. They only have one spawn in this one cave. What that means is that finding an outbreak of them is actually just impossible. It is like, I don't think it's possible. I could find one picture of proof that anyone had even done it. I'm pretty sure at this point that was probably Photoshop. It just does not appear. Then I tried isolated shiny hunting, which is the thing where you use a shiny bread that gives you the sparkling power and encounter power, and then you just run around them and hope you run into a shiny. It is 1 in 600 something something, so pretty good odds. And I've gotten some shinies with it before. Did not work out. I spent hours and hours with that. At this point, I was starting to get pretty tired of that. I kinda just wanted to play the DLC. So, I was like, fuck it. We'll do it with Masuda method. Masuda method is kinda lame. I especially don't like the way it works in this game. I way preferred hatching eggs in Pokemon Sword and Shield, but whatever. We'll do a little bit of Masuda method here. Why not? 800 eggs, not a single shiny. As you can imagine, I got very, very tired of Masuda method. I fucking hated it. I don't want to ever do Masuda method, at least in this game, ever again. So I went back to the bread. And I kept on running into that cave, running out of the cave, running into the cave, running out of the cave, running into the cave. About 2 more days, I did that, until finally... Let's fucking go! Let's fucking go! I found it! And my microphone isn't pointed in the correct... Okay. You don't even know how long it's been. It's been 5 days. 5 days. I started playing this DLC, I played it for a day, and then I decided, hey, I kinda wanna get a Cyndaquil. A shiny Cyndaquil would be really cool. Bad idea. Awful idea. Do not do that. God, I fucking despise this cave. I hate it. It's the worst fucking cave ever created. Holy shit, it's finally over. Okay, so I didn't even tell the full story here yet. I also, during this time that I've been shiny hunting this, I found 2 Minchinos. 2. I only caught one of them, but I got 2. A Quillfish. Can you please load? Yeah. And then a Lapras. I was using Fire Bread. I should still have the Fire Bread active right here. Yeah. So I have Sparkling Power Fire, Tidal Power Fire, and Encounter Power Fire. Yet I could not find a Cyndaquil. I kept on finding shinies from like outside here because I ran into the cave and then I would run back here. Like, I found about here to be pretty good. I run here, do a circle, and then run back into the cave and check if there's any shinies that have spawned. There's one Cyndaquil right there, but as you can see, only one spawned. Only one. A lot of times, not a single one spawned. So this was such a fucking awful shiny hunt. Yeah, I think I'm gonna use Duraludon and Cyndaquil. I think my team for the DLC is going to be these and Murkrow. Murkrow as my final. Yeah, so that was a great experience, but I was excited. I was very excited at the same time, because now I finally got to play the actual DLC, and I finally get to fight the Elite Four, and then after that, Kieran. And yeah, the Elite Four mostly delivered. Some of them weren't as crazy as others, but I especially found the Steel type one to be quite interesting. They had some Trick Room stuff. The first two Pokemon had Sturdy and Focus Sash, so you couldn't just like insta-KO them and they would get up Spell Rocks. The Fire type was easy. The Fairy type one, Lacy, I think is their name, was good. Yeah, it was pretty good. Also, it took me very long to realize that they're Clay's daughter. I kept on thinking like, which Unova gym leader are they talking about? And for some reason I just didn't like consider Clay at all. And then once I realized, I was like, oh, of course. Yeah, that makes sense. Drayton, the dragon type one, they were pretty good. I enjoyed that battle. It was pretty fun. And then we get to the main event. As I alluded to before, other battles like this in Pokemon haven't really delivered. We've had Leon in Pokemon Sword and Shield, and I'm mainly thinking of like relative to the game that they're from. I don't think Leon was really that much more difficult than anything else in Sword and Shield. Same thing goes for Nemona, and Nemona, I think especially, was like even more disappointing for me. Like, it was just kind of like a very normal battle. It didn't feel much more different than the Professor or the champion Geta. It was just kind of like a very standard difficulty, is what I would call it. 6 versus 6, fully evolved, okay levels. Nothing about it really stands out. I felt like this was the moment where they could finally deliver me this kind of battle that was like built up. And then there's the topic of Kieran himself as a character. I really like the character. I really like the character. I think they're one of my favorite rival characters in Pokemon. Kieran is very clearly a answer to the whole criticism of like modern Pokemon rivals being way too friendly with the player. I guess you could also argue that Bede was sort of an answer to that, and what the fuck is his name? Gladion. Kieran especially, I think, was sort of an answer to that. I don't think a rival needs to necessarily be like mean to the player character or like evil. What I want more so is, like, you can't tell me that someone like the X and Y rivals, I don't even fucking remember their names, right? or How or Hop. You can't tell me that any of those characters at any point was actually trying to be better than the main character. They were always more than happy to be like 2nd place or 3rd place, right? Which is, they're rivals. Their whole point is supposed to be that they're trying to be stronger than you, they're trying to be better than you. But these ones just don't do that because they're way too nice to do that. And Kieran absolutely does that. I mean, the guy's whole thing is that he's fucking obsessed with defeating you. I think that's cool. I really like that. I think this is the ideal Pokemon rival. This is what I want out of a Pokemon rival. But if the battle is easy, then they're just gonna end up like Leon or Nemona. So, how was the battle? I mentioned the whole thing about the Cyndaquil the Typhlosion for a reason. I decided to get a Typhlosion because I wanted to give it Eruption and Choice Specs and Modest Nature, and I sort of just wanted to see like if the opposing trainers in the DLC could do anything about that. And for a surprise, they actually did have a good amount of counters to it. The Steel-type Elite Four member had a Sturdy and Focus Sash on their Pokemon, so they managed to defeat Typhlosion through that. The Dragon-type one was overall pretty difficult to use Typhlosion against, and Kieran led with a Drizzle Politoed and a Dragonite, which is quite possibly the hardest counter you could ever do to a Typhlosion. That was quite nice, and I didn't lead with Typhlosion, so I did manage to like kill the last 3 Pokemon with it. But overall though, even with that, champions, rivals, evil team leaders, Kieran isn't too bad compared to those I've battled over the last 15 years or so. Stand proud, you cooked. Kieran wasn't too bad. Sure, I beat them first attempt, but throughout the battle I did feel pretty excited. You know, when I saw them send out the Drizzle Politoed and the Dragonite, and then they did like the Helping Hand Thunder to one-shot my Murkrow, I was like, damn, this is a real Pokemon battle. Like I have to think about what I'm gonna do here next. It was good. I enjoyed it. It was a very fun, engaging Pokemon battle. I think Kieran is the first time they've successfully done this hype and build up of a battle and have it actually like succeed. I do have a possible minor criticism of the whole Kieran storyline or whatever. At some points I kind of got the impression that they were trying to have like the lesson from Kieran be that like you can't become the best if you just hyper focus on like getting stronger, which then like implies that the reason why I won was because I didn't push people away and that I had like power of friendship and things, but like, no, I didn't win because of the power of friendship. I won because I had Terra, Fire, Modest, Choice Specs, Typhlosion, Eruption in the sun. You know? What I'm left with thinking after all of that is the reason why Kieran lost wasn't because of anything that he did wrong, it's because he just wasn't good enough. Like he just couldn't defeat us, and there was no real like lesson in that. Like if they were trying to go for a lesson, which I don't know if they were, maybe there wasn't meant to be any kind of lesson. All the Terra Pago stuff and the Area Zero stuff after felt pretty weird. It was very like disconnected from the stuff before. It just kind of suddenly, it's like, oh, we're doing this now. And it was a very short segment as well. It's fine. It's okay. I appreciated like the added backstory to the Professor Sada and the Area Zero and all that. And overall, this DLC ended up feeling pretty short. This is the first time in a while with Pokemon where I think my main criticism is that this was like really good. And I just kind of wanted like more of it, which is exciting. It is really exciting. This game has made me more optimistic for Pokemon's future. I think that the battling aspect of this DLC was great. I think it's the best we've had in a very long time. The characters were great. I was not expecting them to add just straight up like flying, like free flying to the game. That's cool. That's a nice addition. The synchro machine, that's really cool. Being able to change the way you throw your Pokeball, that's really cool. This was a very good DLC. This was a very solid DLC. A lot better than Teal Mask. Although, I do have to add to the end here, why the fuck did they shiny lock the legendaries? Like, not Terrapagos, they've been doing that for ages. But like the normal legendaries. Why are they doing this? Since I saw that they did this, I have been fucking racking my brain, trying to come up with some kind of explanation, like trying to play devil's advocate, come up with some kind of reasoning for why they would do this. And I just cannot come up with anything. The main argument for why they do this, the main explanation, is that they want to give away these Pokemon with mystery gift later. If right now, I spent hours and hours shiny hunting the Pokemon, and I got it, how would that in any way make them lose money, or lose profit, or anything of that sort? I genuinely cannot come up with anything. It's a mystery gift. They give it away for free anyway. Again, it's not like a huge complaint. I mean, most of these legendaries I would prefer to shiny hunt in older games anyway. It's just confusing. Like, why? What is the point of this? I think that's all my thoughts on this DLC. It was very good. It was very fun. I completed the DLC yesterday, so it's still all like very fresh in my mind. I'm gonna keep on playing it. I haven't completed the Pokédex yet, so I think I'm gonna do that. I think I'm done with shiny hunting in this game though. I think I've had my fill of that. I'll probably return to shiny hunting in Pokemon Sapphire in the next few days. That concludes this video, I suppose. That's all the games I had to talk about. There were some games that I played this year that I chose not to include. One of those being Pokemon Sapphire, because I'm not done with it yet. Other ones being all the PS2 games that I mentioned in the PS2 video, since I already sort of talked about them there. Then there is some Game Boy games. I played some Game Boy games this year. Very cool. I like the Game Boy a lot. I played Dark Souls 1 5 times, and then I played Elden Ring. I streamed a playthrough of Elden Ring. Very, very fun playthrough, but since I talked about it in last year's video, I decided to not include it either. Very good year in terms of video games. I played a lot of fun stuff. I'm gonna wrap it up here. This has been a very long video already. I'll see you someday. Maybe. Bye.